know, not just any woman. What is it like to be a Black woman? And at that moment, I'm taken aback. My mind goes back in the day where I sat face to face with the woman who gave birth to me. So she had no reason to sugarcoat a thing, and this is what she told me. As a Black woman, I carry the next generation on my back with elegance. You will never witness a frail stance in my manner. I don't shake. That means I'm not feeble. The words of ancestors reproduced into the dreams they believe will never be reality. I am the folklore your grandparents were raised on. I manifest the unattainable, embody the visions, and practice what's preached. Refer to me as wholeheartedly unfeigned. And snap. Back to life. Back to reality. In actuality, my projection is perceived to be a weapon utilized to disrupt the consistency where when I project my wants and needs, they're neglected, minimized, overshadowed, and treated as less. Facing invalidation, my voice is an amplification of Black battered bodies, wide nostrils, cold curls, masking aloe vera oil, and cocoa butter, wrapped up into the soul of a warrior. Eloquent rage releases from my cores with conviction. My sentiments stand on the necks of the relentless acts of a society where I was conditioned to think that who I was in whole value. And when I utter contradictions, I'm labeled combative and angry. I was treated like an X Factor. Oh, this is crazy how this melody became my daily soundtrack. Every table I sat at, I had to have the strongest voice or face rebuttal, exact replication. Every stride I made, it was a must I have pride or be met with shame, false representation. And for every microaggression, I had to hide my frustration, because if I let it slip, I'll just fall right back into the web of stereotypical fantasies, allowing victory to slip through my grasp, creating permission for repetition. But when I entered into a space where I was able to picture my dream as the brightest beam, and it seems to underestimate the power of a queen, the Lord knew what was best for me. My life was golden, and I realized the worth I was holding. I realized my truth. The truth of what it is to be this Black woman with these rhythmic tones and complexities that only a Black queen could conceive. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the global exhibition, Race, Social Justice, and the Arts, co-hosted by the WCAPS Human Rights Working Group and the Race Across the Pond Initiative in recognition of World Social Justice Day and Black History Month. A disclaimer before we begin, today's event will be recorded and shared later on the WCAPS Vive podcast and WCAPS YouTube channel. For those who need a translation, you can access the link below and you will be directed to our translation platform. You will choose your language. We'll drop that in the chat. Thank you. My name is Jackie Waite. I am one of the co-chairs of the WCAPS Human Rights Working Group. I am moderating this event along with Sarah Bahush, the chair of the Race Across the Pond Initiative, and Mari Faines, co-host of the WCAPS UK chapter's Got Melanin podcast. For more info on our work, check out the links that we will post in the chat for you. This event will last about an hour and a half to an hour 40 minutes. Today, we are featuring an art exhibition with talented artists from different countries, followed by a panel discussion and Q&A session moderated by Mari from the WCAPS UK Got Melanin podcast. Some quick housekeeping. Please keep your mics off throughout the event, but please feel free to keep your cameras on and talk in the chat. We'd love to see everyone here and see you all engaging, but please be respectful to each other in the chat. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and we will have time at the end for Q&A from the audience. If your questions are specific to any of the panelists, please mention whom it's directed towards. And throughout this event, please feel free to tweet or post on Instagram using hashtag WCAPSHumanRights, hashtag Race Across the Pond, and please tag at WCAPSNet. In attendance today are my fellow Human Rights Working Group leadership team members, whom I'd like to highlight, Pratima and Josefina, and my other team members who are not here, Ronette, Blessing, and Miriam, who have all contributed in making this event possible. We'd also like to recognize the WCAPS founder and executive director, Ambassador Bonnie Jenkins, and thank her for giving us this platform to elevate the voices of women of color in the fields of international peace, security, and conflict transformation. For anyone who's new to WCAPS or unfamiliar We are a nonprofit organization that works to advance the leadership and professional development of women of color in the fields of international peace, security, and conflict transformation. For more information, please check out the website wcaps.org. If you'd like to become a member of WCAPS, we are sending a link in the chat to our membership form. We'd love to have you join our network. Before we begin, though, I'd like to take a moment to warmly thank Raven for such a powerful and inspiring and great opening. Raven Peterson is from Dayton, Ohio, a senior psychology major attending Spelman College, working on attaining her BA in psychology. When she isn't busy with her scholarly engagements, she spends her time performing spoken word and poetry. Raven is also a social justice fellow with a passion in mental health advocacy. After Raven completes her matriculation through Spelman, she plans on obtaining her PhD. Her career goal is to make meaningful and culturally sensitive contributions to psychological research concerning communities of color, and to become a child psychologist while owning a practice of her own. Raven, we wish you all that and much more. Thank you so much for being with us today. And if you want to follow her on her personal Instagram, her handle will be in the chat. And with all that said, I'm going to pass it off to Sarah, who is going to introduce our artist for today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. Thank you so much, Jackie, for this great introduction. I'm really happy and excited about this event that we have been putting up together with Jackie and Mary and the Human Rights Working Group and the Got Melanin podcast. I'm going to turn it in French because I know that we have French people here. So just for you to know that there is a translation system. Pour ceux qui nous rejoignent et qui ne parlent pas anglais, un système de traduction d'interprétation est disponible. Vous avez en bas de votre écran 3 petits points écrits plus. En cliquant dessus, vous pouvez aller sur En direct, sur Personnaliser le service de rediffusion et vous allez accéder à un service de traduction qui s'appelle Wordy et vous devrez choisir la langue qui vous convient. Voilà, et vous pourrez accéder à une interprétation en direct. With that said, my name is Sarah Buhush, and I'm a humanitarian affairs, peace and security expert. I am the chair of the WCAPS Race Across the Pond initiative. It's a project which explores the impact of constructed race and racism on human security of BIPOC communities, and more globally on peace and security across the globe. We analyze and intend to deconstruct the different mechanisms leveraged by racial and racist systems globally from a wide range of perspectives and methodologies. And we intend to raise the voices of women of color who are leading change in their countries and beyond. With that said, I'm really, really happy to introduce our artist today. And the first one is Antoinette Cooper. Antoinette Cooper is a poet, educator, and TEDx speaker, She is currently at work publishing a multi-genre collection that documents the historical violence on the Black female body. She teaches writing at Columbia University and CUNY School of Medicine and has led writing workshops from the Metropolitan Museum of Art to Rikers Island Correctional Facility. In 2020, she founded Black Exhale, a decolonized space for the liberated Black body. In her poetry, she looks at how and where trauma sits in our bodies, particularly the Black female body, and how we can find safety for ourselves corporally. Antoinette was born on the island of Jamaica and raised on the island of New York, and she holds a BA from Cornell University and a Master of Fine Arts from Columbia University. What a profile, right? If you want to follow her, you can follow her with the links that are dropped on our comment box. So I will give you the floor, Antoinette.
Thank you. Okay, so I am going to share one poem, and I'll share background about it and a conversation around it, and if I have time, a second poem, but most likely not. So I write the Black female body, and the poem that I want to share with you is titled Lucy. And in writing The Black Female Body, I pull from my own experience as a body that has been operated on. And in having that experience, I connected to the stories of women, enslaved women that were operated on in American history and were experimented on, and including their stories in the ways that I write as well. And so one of the women that were operated on, her name is Lucy. And the field of gynecology was built on our bodies. And of the women that were named, there was Lucy and 2 other women. And so this poem is embodying Lucy, but also the experience of what it looks like to have Black women hold one another in our pain and be part of that pain, and at the same time be the comfort for one another as well, and how that can put so much conflict in how we relate to one another, but also in how we relate to our own bodies and how that still continues to manifest today. So, Lucy. There was sweat on my brow, mixed in with matted hair and the exasperation of continued breath. Even though I was ready to meet the maker, I was too wary to call for. They press me down until their flesh becomes my flesh, and we can no longer tell who is the one being harmed or doing the harming. Black on black on black on black. We are all surviving and dying in the same breath. We share each other in respiration, and when I stop breathing, they pound on my breast to call me back into this skin. I cannot escape this flesh. Their hands are as skillful in how they simultaneously give life and take it away. They cannot bear being left behind without me. My heart pumps. This is how I am loved. I am home in their arms as they lay me down on the coldness of our surgical table. It is my turn for the knife. We have all been trained well in our bondage. I have nursed for them. Today, they will nurse for me. They will lie to me. You will not feel a thing. Their screams are just as deafening as my own. Unfasten your legs, he commands. And when they will not part, the women, with condolences on their tongues, open me up to be bruised in the name of healing. I do not know how to thank them. We are the Dead Seas. We gather our woundedness. We witness the suffering of one another. We are each other's cage and comfort. We are forgetting how we wanted to flee, yet our bodies keep score of the pain until the night when no one is watching us. And I am a crumpled mass of gauze and stitches and crusted over eyes. The women return to me, this time without violence. They embrace me. We weep and give repentance for the sins of our powerlessness. We wipe away what is left of our waters, even as we grow afraid of one another with each day. Our nurture is becoming endangered. We hold each other because there is no one else that will hold us. Black on black on black on black.
Du soldat perdu à la recherche de soi-même et qui petit à petit.
Well, that was powerful. Thank you so much, Antoinette. That's, yeah, face clapping.
Thank you. And I just have like 2 more lines, but I heard the talking going on, so I had stopped. But, and our seas mix with the salt of our sisters. until it runs into each of our inflamed wounds. This too is tenderness. So just to briefly share, part of my work, it speaks to art, it speaks to poetry, it also speaks to medicine. And so that's where I have this work where I teach creative writing, but at the same time, I also teach narrative medicine at a school of medicine. And there are things that language cannot capture. And even though language cannot capture it, like it is in our experience, it's also in our bodies as well. And that's my work. It's similar to the work of medicine, how I think one of the skill sets and the necessity of doctors is the ability to diagnose. I know that when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and that's what my TEDx talk is about, when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, even though the diagnosis was like the worst that one could ever get, there was a relief that was there because of the diagnosis. And that's what I do with my poetry. I look at diagnosing. And sometimes I have to scale back even for myself because I feel compelled to solve. I feel compelled to have a piece completely resolve itself, except we've been in this muck for centuries, and yet no one has solved it. So who am I to try to do have the solution in one piece? And having a medical diagnosis was so transformational for me that in poetry, the ability to diagnose is just as important as what can be done when we start to get into the area of conversation. And so that's how I blend medicine and poetry and diagnosis and transformation and justice. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Antoinette. And I cannot back up enough what you just said on diagnosis, on identifying the illness, the trauma, where it sits, where it comes from, because that's where the treatment can follow. If you don't know where it comes from, it's difficult to treat it. So
Yes,
thank you so much for your poetry and for your words and explanation. That's hard to move on, but we'll do. And our next artist actually would have a lot to say about that actually, but so Faith Simon is a British soulful jazz singer. She's a songwriter as well, a vocal performance instructor with over 20 years of on-stage experience. Formerly trained in opera and jazz, Faith's music style fuses this genre with hip-hop, rare groove, soul and dub for a unique and powerful sound which electrifies the audiences, and I can guarantee you that's true, when she performs with her live band. Simon published 2 albums, Melodrama released in 2009 and Outrospective released in 2015. Over the years, Faith Simon has collaborated and performed and toured with a broad range of successful artists across the UK and Europe, including Ndambi, Yara Bravo, Flora Monche, Madlib, and the legendary Beatnuts. On top of her musical talent, Faye is also a real gifted painter. As for Antoinette, you can find her links on the comment box. And with that said, I will give the floor to Faye.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here, everybody. It is such an honor to be here with you today. First of all, I would really like to share a video of mine with you. It was one of the last music videos I created, and the song is called You or Me, and it's basically highlighting the similarities that we have as as part of the human race, as brothers and sisters on this planet. So without further ado, I will speak more after the video, but I hope you enjoy this. It's produced by Doc TMK, and he's from France. So we had a nice across the pond collaboration. So I hope you enjoy this, and it's directed by Chiba Visuals.
Let me know if you all can hear the audio.
Can be anything, anything you want to be, or anyone, if you dare to dream. Ooh, when you walk your road, be sure to take heed of the lessons learned, so you can be free. Struggling inside your skin so that you can shine. You have a voice, you have a choice, but will you be on time? I'm struggling inside my skin so that I can shine. I have a voice, I have a choice. I see you, see, 'cause you are me. I know you know, 'cause you are me. From the stars to the depths of the sea, you are me. It's reality. You are everything, everything to somebody. Please remember that, even if you cannot see. When you walk your road, don't stand on me. I'll stand by you, so we can be free. We're struggling inside our skin so that we can shine. We have a voice, we have a choice, but will we be on time?
Jackie, you're on mute. Can you put it on full screen, please?
Because you are me. I know you know, 'cause you are me. From the stars to the depths of the sea, you are me. It's reality. You are. You're struggling inside your skin so that you can shine. You have a voice, you have a choice, but will you be on time? I'm struggling inside my skin so that I can shine. I have a voice, I have a choice.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for sharing your screen. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed that track. So it's basically, as you can see, there were different artists that I asked to join me to show everybody that we have different passions, but we are very, very much the same, and we're very similar with every culture that you will encounter, with different people you encounter, you will always find similarities. So that's what I wanted to highlight with you, Army. And I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it touched you. As a vocalist, I have also done a lot of things that have enabled me to give back to the community. And I believe that all artists are critics of their time. So they have an obligation to be positive role models, or at least an objective voice. And that's the kind of artist that I wanted to be. Also, as a music teacher, I'm a vocal teacher and I teach music for Harrow Music Service. So being able to share music every day is very, very special to me. And I find music to be special because it unifies people. It also unifies both hemispheres of your brain as well. It's the only activity you can engage in where you use both hemispheres of your brain and the bridge of your brain. So music is extremely profound and very much necessary. As Sarah has already told you, in 2009, I released my first album called Melodrama, and it enabled me to be that critic and to write songs about Black women, about my Black experience as a woman in the UK. So I wrote a song called Sister on that, as well as a track for the Sisters of Darfur. When I read about the war in Darfur, it really, really touched me. So I wrote a song called Forgotten Ones on that album as well, dedicated to that. And in 2015, as you've already heard, I had my second album, which was released on BBE Music. And the entire project was a social critique. And because I lived in Tottenham and we had the Tottenham riots the year before, I got the opportunity to write a song called Running about that experience while it was happening. So I decided to use my voice to share the Black experience, but not only just the Black female experience, but all experiences, because I've been able to tour across Europe and perform in different places across the world. I went to Bosnia in October 2015, and I went on the Remembering Srebrenica tour. And as an artist, I had to make a pledge, and that pledge was to create a piece of music or create an artwork after experiencing, going over there and experiencing what I'd seen. So I had that, the opportunity to write a lovely song called The Lovely Bones about what I'd learned about that war and that experience. The following year, I also was asked by the Global Alliance for Legal Aid to perform in Grenada in Richmond Hill Prison. And as my ancestors are from Grenada, it was really quite a profound request. So I went over there to highlight the human rights issues. And it was very, very profound because I got to see my home in a completely different light, and I got to give back to the people there. So it was a very proud moment in my career. And in that same year of 2016, I became a political vocalist here as well, because I was asked to do the JC for PM tour. And that was to help promote Jeremy Corbyn, who was the leader of the Labour Party at the time. And I was also asked by Rob Johnson, who is a folk singer and socialist as well. He asked me to be part of that project, and we did a song together called JC for PM for Me, and that was promoted all over the UK. So I proudly continued working with Rob, and we did another single last year in 2020, and that was about, it's called Tony Skinner's Lad, about Dennis Skinner, who is another MP, and he's a Labour MP, and he's highlighting all the things and the good things that people have done to help further each other and to promote unity. So I've been really, really blessed to be able to use my voice to help forward social justice and social change in the UK. So I've also, as you can see in the background, got some artwork to present to you. And this is a work in progress and is part of a series called The Rap Gods. Because of the pandemic, I have decided to obviously use my time wisely, but also shockingly enough, we lost 4 UK Black male rappers last year. So we lost Ebo from the Foreign Beggars, Black the Ripper, who is behind me. I'm working on his piece first. He was a cannabis campaigner, rapper, had his own label, musician as well. And we also lost MF Doom at the end of the year. So it was really, really quite strange that only one of them died of COVID and they all died suddenly. So I wanted to immortalize them, or they're already immortalized now, but I wanted to do my own tribute to them. So I started my Rap God series, and I've started with Black the Ripper, and will continue to work on the other 4 pieces as well until the whole series is complete. And then hopefully I will be able to exhibit it with fingers crossed. So as I've exhibited my artwork, thankfully in New York, London and Berlin, hopefully I'll be able to do that here as well, again with these pieces. So I know my time is short, so thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with us today on such a special day and such a special event. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening and the rest of the artists to come. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Faye. It's a pleasure to have you and to hear you all the time. It's just a pleasure, really. Thank you. And as you said, it's a special day today. It's the World Day of Social Justice. It's also the Black History Month. So it's really the goal of this event is to highlight the connection between arts, culture, with social justice and anti-racism and change. So thank you so much, Faye. And I'd like to jump back on what you said and the tribute that you gave for MF Doom. I'd like to also recognize and pay a tribute to DJ Cozy, who died earlier this year, and who was a fundamental piece of the hip hop movement in France. So yeah, I just wanted to pay him a tribute. Thank you so much, Faye. And I'll follow with Malaz El Gemiavi. Malaz is the founding principal of El Malaz, a design studio in Cleveland, Ohio, in the US, as a designer, photographer, and professor, sorry. Her work creatively utilizes unique skills and tools carefully cultivated through international and multicultural architectural experiences to align design with community needs. Malaz recently completed the design of Riverview Welcome Center, part of the $40 million Irish Town Bend development. She is also an advocate to community engagement and was a speaker at Women in Architecture Conference Leadership Summit 2019 and appointed as the designer in residence for Cleveland Foundation Creative Fusion 2019. She is also the recipient of Minority Art and Culture Fund grants and on 2 consecutive years on community public art projects, and is selected as one of Cleveland's most interesting people 2020. You bet why. Malaz El Gemiabi is from Sudan and holds MFA from Virginia Commonwealth University and a Bachelor of Interior Architecture and Design from London Metropolitan University in UK. Again, you will find her contact on the comment box. Thank you so much, Malaz, for joining us, and I'm handing over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you everyone for being here, and to my other co-panelists and artists. I've really enjoyed so far your artwork and your thoughts and your intellectuals ideas as well. And I'm happy to share with you some of my artwork journey. As Sarah told you, I'm mainly an architect by profession, but I'm also an artist, and above all, I'm a mother, and a Black mother. That's very important. So I try to change the world. That's what Black moms do. And So to answer, I think Jackie has the screen to share with you. So I would like to share first a video about the work I do with the community. I identify myself as a community architect. It's a kind of label that I chose for myself, and that's because the work I do is heavily embedded within the community and for the community. So sometimes it's sort of like travel between art and architecture and design. And this is the video you'll see is one of those projects that transcend between like more than one discipline, including social justice and race and gentrification and identity as well.
Okay, let me know if you all can hear the audio once I play it. My computer's also kind of slow, so bear with me.
Can you put it on full screen, Jackie, please?
City neighborhood are hoping it will be a driving force to build more unity.
While it's only temporary, its
You
effects are far reaching and have the potential to change the overall landscape, one face at a time. It's the people who make a community, diverse backgrounds and experiences. And to showcase that, one by one, these portraits are being added to the Riverview Welcome Center on West 25th Street in Ohio City.
I love working in places that are at the verge of change.
Malaz El-Jamiabi is an international designer working with Land Studio, charged with transforming this space that for 15 years was only used as a storage facility.
We wanted them to reclaim this building as their community space, and it can't get any better by putting, literally stamping your face on it.
She and two others took these photos, but she also learned some of the stories behind the faces, not only what the people want, but what they need. Malaz is from Sudan, Africa, but now calls Cleveland home.
Coming to this community that is a great community. I have been so grateful throughout this process. I ended up actually moving here.
Outprint Imprint is now part of a global movement. This piece in Cleveland celebrating values of inclusion, diversity, and dignity.
The idea that you have been seen. I wanted to let them know you've been seen, you've been heard.
And Malaz believes that voice will be heard not just in this community, but throughout the city.
My hope is that the conversation goes actually beyond these walls. And this is the first step.
So they are putting up 250 portraits using a paste mix of flour and water. Depending on the weather, it could last up to 4 weeks. The public open house is Saturday from 5 until 7. On the inside, there will be an exhibit of videos from people who live and work in Ohio City, sharing what dignity means to them. That runs through October.
Okay, thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you everyone. And the video you've just seen was taken during one of my first projects, public art projects in the US. And it's really one of the most kind of like closest project to my heart, because to do that art project, I spent over 6 months of hands-on community engagement to try to understand the people that I'm working with. And that started with driving Uber and Lyft around in the neighborhood to be able to talk to people who I wouldn't normally have the privilege to meet, and to understand really what are the aspirations and the need of the community before using art as a tool to bring people together. And in that particular project, one of the things that I've heard a lot was the word dignity. And since it's a very heavily gentrified neighborhood with more than 80% of the people who live there African American, you can imagine like all the sort of resentment and fear that a lot of the older member of the community and older in terms of like being living there for a while, but also senior housing senior citizens who feel scared that they might be moved out of their neighborhood, or they are no longer seen as a valuable member of the community. So the idea of being seen in your community and as part of your community was the way I wanted to communicate through art with the community participation as well. So the project in itself also inspired the kind of like the following method that I adopted, which is kind of it became sort of like my art project, but it's really not mine. So I'm giving cameras to community members and then curate an exhibition out of their own photographs taken, like it's almost like seeing the world in their own lens. And so that came through this project. I think Jackie has also other photographs that could share. And yeah, so the two photographs that are here are taken on a series, the project called Dignity on the left side, and mainly targeted senior, the residents of Ohio City, and the one on the right was called Resilience, and it was taken during the June 6th march in Washington, D.C., and that happened right after the June 3rd massacre in Sudan, and how people kind of like reacted to that horrific event that shook the country and the world, where the government paramilitias, the Janjaweed mainly, and the RSF, which is rabid forces at the moment, called disrupted a peaceful sit-in and ended up killing more than 160 and injuring more than 1,000. So I went there to Washington, D.C. right after the massacre and had a sort of like a project with the community there, where they could express what are their feelings. And the one that came the most was resilience. And the second photographs on the back, the two of them, the other one, would be something to address the questions is, well, the first part would be how do you think being a Black woman impact your art from a creator and audience perspective? And that would be the first two photographs. Is that in my work, I talk about women, I photograph women, and I also see the world as a place where we as women are constantly asked to absorb a lot of the pain and traumas that are happening around us, and to stand up for it, and to be the guardian and the defender of our communities. So I wanted to I want to show that, and I wanted to show the resilience and the dignity of the work that women do mostly. And this work is what do you think the role of an artist has been in social justice throughout history? And in these two particular projects, I had one which is about the first march that the Sudanese community organized in the US in April, and I took the photographs of where Sudanese people meet. So the idea of social justice at the time for me was the Sudanese revolution, and how that the main like, let's say, idea that was floating around in people at the time was peace. And but peace wasn't for me. Social justice is really about how people empower themselves, and they are empowered to create those changes, and not just sort of like an authoritative or a top-down change, but it's also like a bottom up change. And that was, I tried to capture some of these sort of like community, kind of like grassroots or community, organic community actions that were portraying what does coming together mean, what does having peace between us mean. And on the second part, it was like in response after the Black Lives Matters protest in Cleveland, Ohio. And my house was actually located within the area that was shut down by the guard, the armed guard, and what was it, like the Reserve Army. And we had this kind of like a protest following the George Floyd death. And I wanted to create sort of like a performance to really express sort of like my not just my anger, but sort of like the critical thinking component that I felt like a lot of people were missing, especially people who are in power position or like in organizations that I belong to, that I kept receiving all of these emails that console businesses for their loss, and that doesn't mean that I agree with violence in particular, but the fact that a lot of the organizations in terms of like architecture or like media or art were all talking about the loss of properties, and especially kind of like the vandalization of places like Targets and Walmarts, and that angered me so much as a Black person in America at the time, is that feeling of like, who do you really care more about? And so that was the photos on the right was part of that performance, to try to really ask the kind of the important questions. Do you care about the human? And that's sort of that question is kind of like a bit absurd, because I feel it's really not about the performance. It has a tie to a lot of other issues, like the capitalist system that we belong to. And if we are, it's sort of like, if we are really going to be making the difference. Okay, all right, I think we're gonna have to wrap up now, but yes, thank you so much for listening, and I hope that there's more be in my social media and things like that. So
Thank you so much, Malaz, for your work first. That is quite amazing, inspiring, and how you're working with the communities and to bring this sense of cohesion and inclusion. That is really fantastic. Thank you so much. And also you have already started the conversation that will come up on the panel. So that's really great. It will start the discussion for later. So thank you. All right, I'll move on to our next artist. So I would like to introduce to you Mayada Adil. Mayada is a doctor, intersectional feminist, and multidisciplinary artist. She's immigrant of the world, currently based in Paris, France, and she believes an ethical, conscious fashion is a necessary means of expression and mirrors impactful messages to the community through visualization. She also believes fashion design is a medium that reflects cultural diversity, promotes social cohesion through the statements they advocate for, and empowers women through building their confidence and self-expression. I cannot agree more. Fashion design is also a well-recognized means for livelihoods and economic empowerment by providing employment opportunities for women through vocational training and developing businesses. Mayada was chosen to be the face of the European Film Festival, leading the movement to encourage the Sudanese women to celebrate the African beauty away from the world standard beauty. She represented Sudan in UNESCO Paris 2018 Africa Fashion Reception with an outstanding collection that united the two divided countries culturally called Sudan and South Sudan, and successfully campaigned with other fellow Sudanese activists from around Europe to stop EU funding to the Janjaweed militia during the Sudanese Revolution 2019. She also prepared many protests in France with activists to support the Sudanese revolution from afar. And clearly, her art is her tool of expression that is the most powerful and fantastic. You will find, as all the other artists, her links in the comment box. Thank you so much, Mayeda, for being with us, and I'll give you the floor.
Thank you so much for having me first. And thank you all for attending, and thank you for the artists before me. I am kind of humbled to see all of the artistic side of yours, also the emotional side of yours. And I would like to continue the same flow with starting with the spoken word that I wrote during Sudanese revolution, called Stitches. Stitches, battered and bruised, torn and abused, oppressed and misunderstood, forsaken and forgotten, tongue-tied with the robe of traditions, in a world where my rights are trampled upon, with disdain, impunity, and impertinence, and my privilege for centuries have been shelved. Yet, I will not utter a word. I will let the needle speak. I'll let the needle speak to your fears of what I could become if I open the doors of freedom to education, enlightenment, and self-awareness. I'll let the needle stitch together the torn pride, steam, and innocence that you ripped away from me. I'll let the needle stitch the broken skin of yours. The same surgical needle I used to stitch the bleeding head of yours in the emergency room. I'll let the needle speak. I'll let the needle piece together this fabric of our society that alienate the feminine me, you, and us from where we rightfully belong. I'll let the needle speak. I'll let the needle speak of a new identity that I sketched in my scramble book, an identity of elegance, an identity of grace and beauty that exude confidence unbound. From now on, if you found me confident in this runway of life, it's because of the determined needle of hope has stitched for me an attire that shred pain and oppression, and Almighty has designed for me a smile that will last for generations to come. Okay, with this beginning, I would like to show you a performance I have done for the Sudanese women. As Melaz was talking about the massacre happened in the 3rd of June, 2019 in Sudan. I'll show you the video first. I'll share the screen a lot to me.
أنا حاسس بيها حزين ينعل الحب جانا رافع عباية الدين أيدوس بسرعة ظهرت بعد يومين طالب في سنة أولى مقطوع ومقلوع عين دخل الكلام الحوت دغنا الهوان الشين يا ناس كمان سكوت ولا انتم مرتاحين ولا انتم مرتاحين الطيبة لها حدود الطيبة لها حدود الحي مصير يشوف.
So this performance I have done 2019 is just to honor the women that been raped in the massacre by the Janjaweed militia. Those Janjaweed militia raped the women and put their pants in the stick. Do you see the stick? Do you see the picture? Yes. So what I have done, I was frustrated for days with this image in my head for like, I was completely paralyzed when I saw this image. And I put myself in those women, because our society normally dishonored those women and honored the men because of the revolution, because of the war. So what I have done, I gathered around 150 pants and I stitched them together to formulate the Sudan flag in the video that you have seen. And let me tell you, this video went viral in Sudan and sparkled a controversial opinion, but because I wrote an article with it, so people get to know what exactly the message is. Because in order to change our society and how they look for the victims and raped women, we had to do something to touch them, and that's how they've been touched through that video. And that's part of the performance that I have done. And I'm sorry. I'm getting a little bit emotional because I'm getting back all the feelings that I got 2019 with the revolution. And as mentioned, Sarah, that in 2018 I've been invited by UNESCO to do a défilé, which is I did a collection. I gathered the fabric of this collection from Kenya, and I also work with the South Sudanese women, refugees women, lives in Khartoum, and I also wanted to show the unity in women in one gathered collection that happened. I'll show you a little bit of it. Sorry for that. So what I'm trying to say is, art for me, it's a language to communicate. Whenever form of the art, it could be like a fashion, a garment, a cloth, which is that what I'm using, and a spoken word, a documentary. It's the way for me to debate, to participate in spaces that, as I am an African and Black woman, I'm not allowed to enter. So clothes was my language to convey those borders and allow me to enter more spaces. And for me, it's to promote the expression and also a collective resistance, respecting individualities. And as a woman, also lived in many countries like Sudan, Kenya, and France, and Saudi Arabia as well. I was raised in Saudi Arabia, where I have the issue of nudity and what should I be covered and what should I not covered, and how the society control our bodies, and even I wanted to invite to discuss the discussion about those problems, even when I'm directly concerned about it. So this was my contribution, and yeah, basically, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayeda. It was very emotional, like every intervention tonight, very powerful. We are all, I think that I can speak in the name of the audience that we are all so inspired by you all and by your work and your art and your engagement as well. So thank you so much for being here tonight and for sharing with us your emotions and what inspires you. All right. This event, this exhibit is now coming to a conclusion. I hope that you have enjoyed as much as we did this exhibit of arts of our panelists. We will move on to the discussion. So I will give the floor to Mary. I would just like, before I do that, I'd like to say hi to Bunny, who has joined us. Ambassador Jenkins is here tonight, and we are very happy to have you here. If you want to give a word before we start the conversation, feel free to do so.
It's hard to say anything that could be impressive after everything that has been presented. I just want to first of all thank all of the artists for all that you're doing, and the work and the dedication that you're putting into all this is so inspiring, and so happy that we are able to be inspired by you and be a part of what you're doing in your journey. So thank you so much for what you do on a regular basis every day. And for all the people who are out there and can't say thank you to you directly, we're lucky that we can. So thank you for that. Thank you for taking the time to do this with us. Of course, thank you to the wonderful WCAPS team for everything you're doing for this. But I'm just learning a lot. So Sada, take it back and keep doing the wonderful work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bunny. It is, I mean, one of how to say that, it's just like Bunny said, it's very difficult to jump back after all this, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that it is very important to team the work of artists, because art is really a tool, and I truly believe that art is, and cultures are really tools for change, for sharing messages, and from promoting some conversations and narratives. So thank you again, and I'll give the floor to Mary Faines, who will lead the conversation, and we will end up with some Q&A session. Please be mindful. We are supposed to have a 1 hour 30 event, 1 hour 30 time frame. Is that what? Yeah. Sorry for my English tonight. Please bear with us, as we might take a bit more time. We want to give you the time also to share your questions. So thank you so much, Mary.
Say just one more thing. Just wanted to just highlight that, you know, from the very beginning, when WCAPS was started in 2017, there was always an art part of the work. You know, when I started the organization, I thought about art and policy, and you know, one of the reasons why is because, you know, there's so many policy people, you know, where I am in Washington, D.C., who don't even think about art. They don't think about the important role that art plays, and artists have always gotten that. They always understood the role of art in shaping minds and shaping policy. And, you know, it really makes me feel so good that, you know, 3.5 years later, this is a growing part of WCAPS, I think. And so I just wanted to say how much this is really promoting the goals of what we're trying to do with WCAPS. So I just wanted to make sure I said that before I say goodbye. So, thanks.
Thank you, Bonnie, and you are very right. And as Jackie has written in the comment box, the arts gives us a voice, power, healing, and so much more. I'd like to add that it's also the voice that we have when we don't have power. It's the way that we use to express ourselves when we don't have any other way to do it. So, all right, Mary, up to you.
Wow, honestly, I have been sitting here for the duration of this event, just humbled to be in the presence of all of these wonderful artists and all of the people that have decided to join us on this evening. As both Sarah and Jackie said, I am Mari Faines. I am the host of the WCAPS UK's Got Melanin podcast, a podcast that discusses the ways in which systems work with disenfranchised people, particularly looking at the ways that systems affect Black women across the globe. And so I am honored to be having this conversation with all of you. I think the running theme that I saw through all of your work that was so impactful was the ways in which you talked about Black women and being a Black woman and how it affected your artwork. And so I think the place that we should really start this conversation is at that intersection. And just, I want to give each of you an opportunity to talk about how being a Black woman artist or a Black woman creator has played a role, especially in this last year, 2 years that we've seen such a global rise in the ways that Blackness has changed. And I think I want to start off with our first artist, Antoinette, if you can just talk about the ways in which being a Black woman has affected you in this space.
Affected me in like this body, in this world, and this tumultuous existence.
Ma'am, all of it. All of it. Give me any of it and all of it, who you are. That is what we want to hear.
Well, you know, so I'm currently on a 6-month residency at a Buddhist monastery. And so I'm so clear that we are more than body. At the same time, this body holds us and takes us through the world. And so based on the body that one is in, their experience is different. And so going through the world, oh gosh, going through the world as one with a uterus has been an experience. And I remember each month with my cycle, I just would ask God, why? Why? Like anybody up there, why did I get a uterus? And then on top of that, then this Black female body. So then to have a uterus and to say I hurt, then in this Black female body, no one really trusts when I say I hurt. So it's been really, it's been inhumane moving through the world in a Black female body. What I'm clear about is that the racialized systems in the US are all centered upon the Black female body or the Black body not having the right to itself. And the world still can't get that. And our sovereignty is still questioned. And so then when I came into the world in this body with my eyes fully open, then that dissonance has made it that much more of a struggle, because I see the ways in which people react to this body, and I know myself to be free. And yet other people don't necessarily understand that. And so like being in that kind of fractured existence, the only way that I've been able to reconcile that is through the arts. I find that the way in which I write and the way in which I speak enables me to reach people without their defenses going up. And so I'm really grateful for the ability to write strong prose and write strong poetry, because people can feel convicted without feeling hated. And that's a really important tool, I think, to make a difference.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. And that actually sparked a thought that Faye brought up, where she talked about navigating space as the Black woman and talking politics, but also doing it in a way in which people felt comfortable. And so I want to give you, Faye, the opportunity to kind of touch on that intersection, kind of where Antoinette left us off.
Yeah, I really like the fact that Antoinette started with the fact that we are spiritual beings in a body. And that's exactly where I was coming from in that, particularly growing up in a very white society in the UK and having a very white name. So a lot of the time when people are on the phone to me or writing to me, emailing, anything, they don't know that I'm a Black woman. They just know my name's Faye Simon. And that is where I'm trying to come from, because it enables you to see beyond the fact that I'm a Black woman. Most of the time, it's a surprise to everybody that I'm a Black woman when they finally meet me. So in doing that, it enables me to just connect on a different level aside from my race, and showing people that exactly what I was talking about in my video, connecting our similarities, unifying us through our arts or our creativity, as well as knowing that from a Black female perspective, we have a unique one. So it enables us to navigate our space, but in such a political kind of way, because we do have to be on our P's and Q's here, navigating this in a European space. So being better at your job or being better at anything just so that you don't get pulled up, like, you know, the poppy effect. If your head sticks up too much, your head is the one that's going to get chopped off. So you most definitely have to integrate, but also you can be unique. Do you know what I mean? You can be, can have that freedom in your creativity. A lot like the other artists, both artists from Sudan, who have gone to different communities and shared their experience, and then unified that community with them and integrated with them. And that is what I'm very, very grateful for, because that's what my art and the amount of arts that I'm involved in enable me to do as a Black creative.
Thank you so much, Faye. And wow, people are reading my mind tonight, and I'm really excited about that, because exactly where I was going to go was, Malaz, you talked a lot about immigrating to a community in Cleveland, and being an African woman immigrating to an African-American space in the BLM movement had to be an interesting intersection, in particular when you were working on your project. So can you talk a little about, you know, Blackness is not a monolith. So those intersections are new to a lot of people when you come into those communities. Can you talk a little bit about those experiences? Oh, you might be muted.
Let me unmute. Yeah, let me unmute myself. Sure. That's you mentioned something that's very important, that Black is not a monolithic idea, and Black, what is it? Black is not a color; it's a culture, and there's always there's always this sort of like idea that all Blackness is the same. And all of the experiences that Black people everywhere, it's always going to be kind of like it's similar to one another. So I think the first time that I recognized that I was a Black person was in America. And I lived in UK for 5 years. That's where I studied my architecture. And before that, I was probably kind of like a privileged person in Sudan, a lighter skin Arab mixed, sort of like tribal, belongs into kind of like the higher kind of like tier of the tribal system in Sudan. So there was a lot of tribalism. There was a lot of like understanding of how the different ethnic groups kind of like interact with each other. But the idea, the concept of Blackness, and that you kind of like really is so obvious in America, had made me become conscious and intentionally make a decision to identify as a Black person, because it felt almost like a social justice stance as well, like all human at this level, when they see this level of injustices, then and they reject it in general, then they are Black. They are proclaiming that we are all in this together, and it's not the sort of like the skin color that we are looking for, but really the systematic reasons that why those injustices are there. And we are ready to go
and investigate that. And we are ready to talk about the privilege, and we're ready to talk about how we can build healthier community by building a more just communities. And so that's sort of like become, it's a little bit kind of like I'm kind of like an outspoken in America, and then I always I kind of like take advantage of that. So a lot of my American friends would be like, sometimes they say, Malaz, they're gonna call you the angry Black woman. And I'm like, I am an angry Black woman. and that's fear that a lot of my colleagues or my friends, that they feel they kind of like my colleagues fear having that experience, being Black in America. And Black in America is different than Black in the UK. That's different than being an African and having different shades of colors, not just Blackness, but different sort of like other complicated social structures that create injustices. But having that in America, kind of like I wanted to use the art to really kind of like talk about some of these things in a more direct, blunt way, with to kind of provoke people to really think about sort of like what it means to be Black. So like in the work when I do like Black and dignity, and how and it's really all the time how people, when they see Black, they see disenfranchisement, but they don't see dignity, and they don't see that's how I'm kind of like, if someone's sending a message, it comes to me, so I kind of like start reading. So if I'm pausing because I'm reading some of the chat messages that's out there. So yeah, I kind of like lost my train of thoughts here with the message, but please go ahead and have the question with the next person.
No, thank you. And your point on dignity actually really did spark an interesting conversation about the ways in which Blackness manifests itself in a myriad of different countries. Because the work both you and Maida worked on similar issues in terms of talking about the conflict in Sudan and people representing that. And I'm sure that your work was received very differently in each place. And so I wanted to touch on, Maida talked more about what it was like to work on Sudan and the conflict that was happening in Sudan almost before there was this large racial justice awakening, right? You talked about this, Darfur happened in 2019. We had this big BLM moment in 2020. So you were almost ahead of the world curve. How did people perceive that in real time when it was happening?
Okay, it's like I have to answer the question from my perspective and how people perceive.
Of course.
From my perception, I was always consciously trying to use fashion. For example, when I worked with the South Sudanese refugees women, I was being very careful not exploiting those women. And I was being very careful, trying to give the proper materials, the proper salaries, bringing them clients we were doing training for them and stuff like that, to have their own businesses. So that was my mindset for the fashion perspective, or like why I'm working with women and why it is important and why we're doing the fashion as a means for social movement. How people perceived it, I guess the South Sudanese people perceived it more than the Sudanese people, and maybe now, really for real, 2020. It's been recognized more by the Sudanese people, and what does it mean? But I have a question and concern at the same time. Of course, now with the social movement, social justice movement, you see there is a high demand on the Black models and high demand. You can see them in the cover of magazines. You can see them in the défilé. But I'm very afraid that we're almost heading to another toxic exploiting for the dark skinned people. So those companies, the big fashion shark companies, can generate more profits from those capitalist fashion companies. You know, I'm so afraid it's only a trendy moment. It's not. I'm aware of there is a substantial changes happening in the fashion industry. I'm also wondering, what did they do in the grounds to help those Black women, those poor needed women for work? And I don't know, I'm just wondering for that. And also I would like to share this wonder with others. Do you feel the same concern that I'm feeling? Yeah, especially working in such an environment with a lot of Black people, you know, I really I'm trying to find an answer for that.
No, I think it's an ever-going problem, and I think it's a great point that you raised, and it's something that we all can think about, because, you know, we talk about tokenism, and so we have to ask ourselves as we continue through this movement, are we operating from a place of genuine diversity, equity, and systemic change, or are we operating from a place of genuine, like, tokenism? And that's a real question. And because,
yes,
I want to answer Mayado on that. It's not an answer, but I want to just share. So I want to share an experience because I've been in that place a lot when I'm the token. I mean, I'm a Black woman in architecture. So really very few people in the Midwest in particular, there's really few Black women in architecture. So I'm constantly the only Black person, woman or a male in the room, in an office, or if you get a lot of offices want to hire you for the job. But it's like, and since I had my own company, there's a lot of offices, they want to do business with me. But there's a reason behind it, because now diversity is something that funders, the people who have the money, clients, have it as a condition. And now I've seen it when it was a token. It's a token, and I've seen it when it worked. And usually when it worked, when there was an alignment between the people who have power, the people who have the money, and the people who are going to be doing the work in creating real change. So when all of them said together that we are going to work, let's say, for the community, and not one person, so it's not only like, let's say, the Black person, or like you only as an artist, or it's the people who also have the power and the money. And when I say power, it's probably decision makers, be that decision being city officials or being different sort of like client or stakeholders. And that's when that was the only time when I saw that real change can happen. And once you do it that way, and once people see it can be done, and once people who has power are supporting that, then yes, you can say that it's no longer just sort of like a trend. But if you only see the people who are not necessarily powerless, but have less power, less decision making, people are the one who are doing the work and trying to make the changes, then yes, it's a trend.
Definitely. Thank you, Malaz. I want to give Faye or Antoinette an opportunity to weigh in before we go into our last question.
Well, go Faye.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree. We don't want to be fads. We certainly don't want to be tokens. And I'm pretty sure as creatives, we've all had that experience where you're the only Black face in the room. It happens often. Even as a teacher, I'm only one of 2 Black female teachers in my music service, and we're in the middle of London. So it's that thing. You don't want to be a token, but sometimes you might have to be that catalyst for change. So it might be that you are the case. That is the case. So we need to make sure, exactly as Malaz was saying, we need to make sure that it's not just temporary. It is a permanent change that we are hopefully creating at that time. So that's what I've experienced as well. So and in the fashion industry, particularly in the UK, we see that here. We only ever had Naomi Campbell for the longest time. So it's one of those things that we definitely need to see some change on. Antoinette, sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. Well, I think something that hasn't been acknowledged is that of these structures with communities that are very mixed and diverse, that we've never actually, or the people in power have never actually imagined a society where we were all equal. I mean, it's been a conversation, but even within that conversation, the definition of what is man didn't include people that looked like me, whether by gender or by skin tone. So we struggle with that because we've never planned for that. Like the America and the way America was created, the long-term vision was to have people be subservient for all of eternity. And America is the way it is because it was a creation. People came together and created that. And so we actually need to create this next thing. It's not going to just happen without intention. And no one has, I think that that's a huge blind spot. No one has actually been really intentional about addressing that. This country wasn't set up like that. And even the way, like we look at countries with majority brown and Black people, it's never, the eyes of the world has never looked at us with dignity or with sovereignty in mind or with reverence. We have to address from there.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. And that actually is a perfect segue into some of the questions that we had in the chat, which will unfortunately be our final question in the interest of time. But the question is, if we are thinking about this global reimagining, especially in spaces for Black and brown people, what do you see the role of your art in this space? How do you nurture through your art for the next generation, for the vision that we want to see? And I want to give each of you just a minute to close on your final thoughts about that.
Sorry, what was the question again? I'm so sorry.
No, it's totally fine. The question was, and as we're thinking about the future that we want to imagine, in particular for women of color, how do you think you can use your artwork to create that and nurture that next generation?
Okay, so I'm going to start here. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I can proudly say that I'm already doing that as a teacher because I get to give back every day and I get to teach music to the new generation. I also had the honor of decolonizing the archive for Harrow Music Service. So I got to choose songs for Black History Month that are more uplifting as opposed to showing you from a slave perspective or that element from a negative perspective. So I got the honor to do that last October for the UK's Black History Month. And as I opened with being a critic of your time and being an artist, you do have a certain social obligation, even if that's just being a good role model and setting a good example. So that's something that I would like to leave with the world as a creative myself. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. I think being a teacher is one of the hardest things in the world after being a mom. So, I mean, mom is both kind of like teacher and a caretaker, but so I really do appreciate your work. I think part of what you say, and I wanted to give you the credit, and if nobody said that to me, but to you, but Black women, and especially Black women who are teachers, has been an inspiration to me. And and I've had a very quite in sort of like an Orthodox teacher, which is my grandmother. And I grew up in a Sufi village. It's a little tiny Sufi village in Sudan. And I watched my grandmother wake up every morning at dawn to make tea and little like fried donuts to the whole entire village. And then she would teach me how to do that. And then we take the tea and the breakfast, and we go to the main courtyard where all the village comes in to have breakfast together in the morning, and kind of like share stories about what they happening in their lives. And that was the first lesson I've learned in community building. So the impact that you do by just being you and continuing to do what you believe in and what you do well is so much needed. And that's the same for all the other artists in this group and also the audience. And so for that, I feel like one of the things that I want to do for Black women is I am committed to empower Black women in through the artwork that I do, and in every platform that I am offered, that I receive, or in every privilege that I continue to receive based on the work that I do, or just in general in life. So I continue to coach young Black women in how to lead their own career, and to kind of like also lead a single mom life. These all the things that I feel as a Black woman go through, and in the society, and that I could have some knowledge of that, just to continue kind of like offer that platform, but also like financial support all Black women organizations, Black woman-owned businesses, and in Black women and all. And in general, once that's happened, I know because I know that Black women are the pillar of every community. I know that this work could transcend to everyone. So it's not being exclusive about supporting Black women. It's, I know if I'm supporting Black women with money, power, platform, I'm supporting the whole community. That's include white, pink, purple people. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. It's Black women that carry all that weight.
Perfect. Thank you. And that's a pure point, and I am not mad that you made it. Magda, do you want to give your 2 cents, and then we'll end off with Antoinette?
Okay. Okay, I'll try. For me to get inspiration, I actually take inspiration from my Sudanese roots and culture, and every unrepresented woman. And I'm always trying to support the girls who send me messages on Instagram. I actually use social media a lot to communicate with the people and try to help them and mentor them, or help them in applications and stuff like that. So to me, I believe that I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept, by Angela Davis. I think everyone knows it. For me, I cannot be as sure as she is, but I'm willing to use art, my body, my clothes, my spoken words, spaces, to participate in debate and contribute to break all the walls of sexism, racism, and injustice that's surrounding us all. And also, I no longer accept it to be in the shadows of the history, as also been known in the history in Sudan, that women's actions and women participation in revolution or the political spheres is not documented. So therefore, I participated in writing a book documenting the scenes of women unrepresented and what they have done to contribute in revolution. I also said the revolution started from the kitchen, and the revolution started by the women participating in the spirit of revolution. So definitely I'm going to use every single talent or every single thought I have to give for myself and for the women around me, basically.
Thank you. Thank you. And Antoinette, if you can just bring us home.
Well, in the beginning, when I was introduced and the different accolades that were spoken, so even though I have my Ivy League degrees, I was born in a small parish in Jamaica. I grew up in the hood in the projects in Harlem and the Bronx. I've survived a lot of traumas. And my intention is to really create a space where people can bring all of their shadows and to not be ashamed of it. And it doesn't mean that one is low vibration when they are looking straight at their shadows and at their trauma and dealing with it. And so my calling is, as a healer, to first heal myself. And healer, heal thyself. I then create a space where I can hold space for other people. And that is the work that I think is in honor for our ancestors, because I know how to carry a lot of weight on my back. I know how to survive. I know how to hustle. But to really unlock those things that we have had to survive, so that survival is no longer the way in which I live and the way in which others around me live. I think that's the next revolution in my book. So how can I create that within myself and create that for other people, and be visible in the doing of it? Because that means pushing against being told that I should be seen and not heard.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of the artists for their vulnerability, their authenticity, and all of the work that they're doing, not just involvement in social movements, but just existing in a space that wasn't created for you. I encourage everyone to take the time to reach out to them on social media to continue this conversation. We didn't have this forum just to have one moment. We wanted to create a global conversation, a global movement. This truly has been a fruitful conversation, and there's more places to go from here. So I want to thank all of you, and I thank you for letting Got Melanin host this wonderful discussion. We are beyond ourselves, and I'm going to pass it back to Jackie and Sarah to close us out.
Thank you, Mari. You have been fantastic. Just like every single artist tonight. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you so much, Mari. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you moderate the discussion. I think it is, rightfully your place to do so, and you did a wonderful job. Thank you so much to all the artists. Again, I don't think I can say it enough how appreciative I am of all of you, for being the amazing you, for being such amazing artists and doing such great work. It's so important, and Mari really said it best. So thank you all so much for being here. And please, everyone, do follow them on social media, check out all of their work, check out how you can support them and all the work that they do. Thank you all for attending this event today and celebrating World Social Justice Day and Black History Month. I hope you all gained something from this conversation and all the artists' great work and just inspiring words. A huge thank you to the Human Rights Working Group leadership team, Pratima, Blessing, Josefina, Miriam, and Ronette, Sarah from Race Across the Pond Initiative, and Mari from Got Melanin Podcast for helping to plan and organize this, as well as Ambassador Jenkins, Netta, Raven, our spoken word artist, and again, our wonderful artists for making this event happen. I hope you all have a beautiful Saturday and rest of your weekend.